keep us on mute, please. Good afternoon and welcome to the April 3rd meeting of the Valley County Planning and Zoning Commission. Staff, at this time I will open the meeting. Could we please take roll call?
Yes, Commissioner Freeman,
Here.
Swain,
Here.
Caldwell,
Present?
Roberts,
Present.
Potter.
Here.
All commissioners are in attendance. We have a quorum.
Thank you. We are moving forward with PUD 23-02 McGregor Town Site and CUP 23-52 Phase 1 of preliminary plat. Has there been any ex parte contact or does anyone have a conflict of interest?
No. No.
No. Okay, hearing that, at this time I would entertain a motion to remove this from the table.
I will second.
Nope, I need the motion first,
Sorry.
please.
I move.
I moved. All right. I'm sorry. I move to move the McGregor PUD from the table to open meeting or public,
Move it from the table.
to remove it from the table.
There you go. Second the motion.
There's a motion and a second to remove PUD 23-02 McGregor Town Site and CUP 23-52 Phase 1 preliminary plat from the table. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all of those in favor say aye.
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 Great, thank you. So so we have kept the public hearing open for any last minute questions with the applicant. We did hear the applicant's presentation. We heard public comment and then we heard the applicant's rebuttal at the last meeting. So at this point, I would ask the applicant to come up and we'll try to get you some microphones. Staff, do we have extra microphones?
We don't
There's that one right there.
have to use this one. Can I get some things on the record real quick?
Yes.
Okay. The things that are before you is the packet from the presentation, which was Exhibit 4 on March 14th. You have an email from me that recommends the process for this as originally presented on the initial meeting. And then you have demographic trends and forecast report from Clearwater Financial, which is actually on the Valley County website. There were a couple more letters received after the March 14th meeting that will carry forward and make part of the record for the Board of County Commissioners.
Okay.
There were no new topics brought up in those.
Would you like a vote to accept those into record?
No.
Okay. I would like to know that it was the commission's intention at the last meeting to keep the public hearing open to ask the applicant any questions based off information that has been presented. So at this time, I would open it up to the commission for those questions, and to remind you that if any new information is given, we will then be possibly required to open it back up to public comment. Does anyone have any questions for the applicant?
I do not.
Commissioner Roberts, Commissioner Swain? Commissioner Freeman?
What?
Any questions for the applicant?
No.
Okay. With that, then I will close the public hearing for deliberations. It is our intention to move through this as a very thorough deliberation, so we have a good record. So staff had recommended that we close the public hearing and then follow with an analysis of the comprehensive plan, an analysis of the Valley County Code, a preparation of the compatibility rating with a motion to adopt, and then a preparation for the recommendation to the board. I will just note to everyone, this is not a final decision. This is a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners, either in favor or opposed. With that, I think we can move forward with an analysis of the comp plan, or comprehensive plan. Staff, could you just lead us through this a little bit, what your thoughts were of what we should go through with the analysis of the comprehensive plan and the Valley County Code?
Yes, in the original packet that you were given, I had pulled the,
You're talking this one?
yes, in your binder that you received and that I reminded you of this week. I went through and pulled out all of the goals and objectives from the comprehensive plan. And I thought we could go through that and you can talk to them if you find them important to this. So that we have our analysis of our comprehensive plan. So the first one is Chapter 2, Population. This basically, goal 1 is to accommodate growth and development while protecting quality of life within Valley County. And then goal 2 is to retain the rural small character enjoyed by residents and visitors in Valley County. Chapter 3 is private property rights. Goal 1 is protect individual property rights while considering community rights. I think that's what you're tasked with. Did anyone have any comments towards the comprehensive plan? I mean,
So, Madam Chairman, I have maybe a question here about procedure. What's the intent of what we're doing here? Are we gonna go through all sections of the comp plan or just selected ones?
this is a list, a complete list. I'm not trying to point out any specific ones. I'm trying to show that the Valley County Planning and Zoning Commission have all the goals and objectives in front of them. And if you have ones that you want to bring to the attention of the record and each other in your deliberations, then you should bring those forth.
So our goal as a commission is to have a verifiable record. We've been recommended heavily by our legal staff to make sure whatever decision we have is on record. I think there's two ways to do this. We can deliberate through these now, or we can entertain a motion, move through that motion, and then deliberate during discussion. And if that's the pleasure of the commission, that's fine with me. We just need to make sure that we have a record on file of our decisions based in code, the comprehensive plan, and facts.
I would say that I haven't picked out any particular ones. There was a detailed analysis in the application presented by the applicant in their original application. I would say that chapter 14 of the Valley County Comprehensive Plan, the implementation chapter, specifically states that the following are the means of implementing the plan and must be maintained if the plan is to accomplish the desired result. And then it calls out the land use and development ordinance, the subdivision ordinance, sign ordinance, lighting ordinance, floodplain, capital improvement program. Those are the ways that we implement this plan. So if you don't have specific things that you want to bring up in the comprehensive plan, then we can move into the analysis of the land use ordinance.
Well, I mean, I have a number of things in the comp plan that, Madam Chairman, give me a little bit of leeway here, latitude. So there are a number of objectives and goals within the comprehensive plan that would certainly accommodate some sort of a proposal like this. There are a number of objectives where it appears to be in conflict as well. And so if the intent is to go through each chapter of the comp plan and look at the objectives, look at the goals, and let us deliberate on each one of those, is that kind of what we're asking to do?
Well, I had kind of hoped, having given this to you in January, that you would have done that yourselves and then highlighted the ones that you want to talk about.
I have done that, but that's what we want to do.
That's up to the Planning and Zoning Commission. I mean, I don't feel the need to go through each goal and each objective. They were presented here for the ease of your review. You could go through, mark things up, tag things.
Well, I can sense a definite hesitation in the commission on going through these tasks. So
Well, if I could say something, I think we all have read the comp plan. We may interpret it differently. And I don't think anything would be served here by that discussion now related to this application. I think the questions we may have of disagreement are much deeper than just this, and we would use all our time discussing the comp plan. That's just my thought.
So I mean, if that's a consensus, we could go on and talk about the specific statutes, Valley County codes.
I, just as a placeholder, I will definitely talk about the comprehensive plan and in certain chapters and some of the goals and objectives where I think there is potential conflict. So I want to put that in as a placeholder that I'd like to revisit that.
and you're going to do this in the form of,
I'm up to
well,
guidance of whatever the process is supposed to be here today. This is a little unusual, but usually in deliberations, we'll go through the,
well, usually in deliberations, what I would do and what we have done in prior ones is I will call on each individual commissioner. They will go through their thoughts, and if that's what we want to do, that's what we can move forward with doing.
The only reason I was trying to lead you down this is recent court cases who's want a good record and they want findings and conclusions based upon things in the comprehensive plan and the land use ordinances. That's the only reason I was trying to go down this path.
I absolutely appreciate that.
And we can always return to this during our discussion. So with that, who would like to go first in our deliberations? If no one raises their hand, I'll call on someone.
So, Chairman, question. One of the things that's found in our ordinance, Title 9 or Chapter 9, is the commission should do a compatibility rating. That's us. And maybe that's a place to start, is to go through at least the first three questions. And a question to Senda is, I believe, compatibility ratings, questions number 4 through 9 are not to be addressed by us. Is that still reserved by the board?
No,
County
it was,
Commissioners?
no, it was questions 6, 8, and 9 that were reserved by the board in the resolution in 1997.
Is
but they
that
have-
still in effect today?
No, it was just a resolution. It wasn't an ordinance. You can make a recommendation on those, and I would recommend that you do that. Because the ordinance actually says that the Planning and Zoning Commission is supposed to do that compatibility rating.
Right.
So there's no harm in making a recommendation on those. But the Board of County Commissioners have held to themselves that question 6, 8, and 9, they can change. Because those have to do with financial matters.
So Madam Chairman, it might make sense for us to go to the compatibility rating and walk through that. And see where we come up with on some of those numbers.
Sure.
And see what guides our opinions.
Okay. Does everybody have a copy of one in front of them? Okay.
Okay, so through the compatibility questions and evaluations, the first 3 are based off a matrix that has been created. We can start with question number 1. Is the proposed use compatible with the dominant adjacent land use? Staff has informed us that the dominant adjacent land use is agricultural, both irrigated crops and forest land, giving this compatibility rating a -2, which makes for a -8. Does anyone have any discussion on that? Okay. The second question is the proposed use compatible with the other adjacent land uses, total and average, which is single-family residential subdivisions? According to the matrix, this gives it a +1. When multiplied by 2 is a +2. Does anyone have any discussion on that?
Nope.
Okay, moving forward, the third question is the proposed use generally compatible with the overall land use in the local vicinity? This is both residential and agriculture. We were instructed to see the attached map in which staff gave it a 0, which with that, a 0 times 1 is a 0. Are there any discussion items with that?
I have one on this particular one, because if you look at both types of uses, one is a -2, the other one's a +1. That's a delta of 3, so half, if you average those, it would be a -0.5. And so I scored it as a -0.5 times 1, or a -0.5 instead of 0.
If you look at the directions, question number 3 is based upon land use within a 3-mile radius. It's the local vicinity, and it says land uses within a 1 to 3 mile radius, not a compilation of questions 1 and 2.
So if you pull up a map of the
It's right there.
site, you expand out to 3 miles, I think you'll find that the dominant use is agricultural land. Or at least 50-50.
Which in that case, when this occurs, the response value shall be 0.
No, if one's a -2, the other one's a +1.
If you go 3 miles, that's like 3 miles right there. Huh? That goes into the city. Going north will take in the city because this is the southern boundary.
Does anyone else agree that there's a discrepancy that as a commission's compatibility rating, it should be a negative 0.5 rather than a 0? Okay, we got to start talking.
No, I think 0 is,
0
Okay.
is a fair score.
Great. We can return to that. That is a. Number 4, is the property large enough? Does the existence of wooded area or does the lay of the land help to minimize any potential impacts the proposed use may have on adjacent land uses? What are your thoughts? Staff recommended a +1. I would like to hear what the rest of the commissioners thought about that question and why, please.
So I would read, a +1 is assigned for partial compatibility, adjacency not necessarily encouraged. It's a +1.
What are you reading from? 9?
Appendix A, compatibility evaluation,
What's the site? What's the,
911-1.
9-11-1, Appendix A, compatibility evaluation under C.
Right here. +1, assigned for partial compatibility, adjacency not necessarily encouraged.
so, Madam Chairman, I don't want to dominate the conversation, but I think we have to have a conversation about these questions, so I'm going to jump in, if that's all right. So question number 4 talks about the property being large enough. And I think that starts to question density issues based on the size of the property for what's being proposed. Then and there's a comment and it says, does the existence of wooded area? Basically, the site does not have any wooded area on it except for one grove of trees. It consumes about 5 acres of the site, or maybe 10. And then it says, comma, or does the lay of the land help minimize any potential impacts the proposed use may have on adjacent uses? Well, adjacent uses is back to your compatibility again. And I scored this as a -1 because I think we've heard testimony from the record that has said that it is impactful upon adjacent lands. We've also heard testimony about densities compared to other sites. And that starts to open up the question of what open space is and what's being proposed, so. Just my thoughts.
All right, I'll go ahead and speak to this too. So a -1 is assigned for minimal compatibility, adjacency not discouraged. Well, a +1 is assigned for partial compatibility, adjacency not necessarily encouraged. So I found that, both of those to be similar in that it's not either encouraged or discouraged. I gave it a +1 simply because the densities surrounding it on the other developments through there are similar. This is actually lower density than some of the developments around there. So there is that precedent set for a density such as this.
In section 5 of that workbook, there was the range of 0.21 to 2.47, and this fell within that range. This was in your workbook. This
But is
is
that counting the open spaces? You're not taking
density.
the densities? Right.
So it's,
The density for this one is 2.11. The density for for Fir Grove is 1.71. Density for Timber Creek down the road is 2.18. Railroad Village, which is adjacent to this one, is 2.47.
And so this density, just to bring it down to basics, is number of lots per acre. It doesn't, correct?
Yes.
It does not have to do
And
with,
this, they
I-
should not
I
even be
can-
sitting here. They should be back in the public.
I was allowing them to sit here because I was the one that asked them to move up, thinking that the commission may have questions. Would all of you please move back?
Hearing's
Thank you.
closed. So I think when our discussions earlier and some of the questions we had for the applicant talked about densities, and they're asking for a variance in the PUD about common open spaces. And if that's not granted, because where they're clustering the homes, the density is actually 4.68.
So density.
We are, at
there-
this
there- I'm sorry, go ahead.
point, going through everyone's ideas on this compatibility rating, so I think everyone deserves the opportunity to say what they believe on each of these line items. Let's save the deliberation for later, please. Does anyone else have any opinions on question number 4?
So facts for the record, this is a density of 2.11. Railroad Village is 2.47, that's the one adjacent. Timber Creek, which is located in this area, is 2.18. Wagon Wheel Ranch number 4 is it's down in this area. 1.71. Fir Grove is 1.71. Boulder Creek Meadows, which is over in here, is 1.56. And then Northwind down here is 1.08. And I would like to just remind you, when you're doing this compatibility rating, not on this question, but further questions, when you're assessing mitigation for impacts, make sure you're choosing the number based upon the proposed mitigation. Because it's supposed to be the number after mitigation. The long-range compatibility,
If-
not the current compatibility.
Madam Chairman. Chairman Cinda, if we believe that the mitigation will actually mitigate the impact, then yes.
Yes.
But if we don't believe that mitigation will cover it, then have to take that into account
Yes.
as well.
Absolutely.
And that's one of my points on the compatibility rating, dealing with densities, and that's to question number 4, talks about densities. Is a space big enough? And what we have is we have a concentration of homes. I think you have to admit that part of the development is much, much higher than 2.11 densities per dwelling units per acre in part of the site. Now, granted, they're applying for a PUD, which they're allowed to do that. But that concentration of homes in the areas where the homes are going to be built is much higher and much more dense than the adjacent lands around it.
A PUD is allowed the 6 units per acre, but I understand what you're saying. I just wanted to clarify that. I'm just trying to put facts on the record, Commissioner.
No, I
And this one is 2.11.
no, I know that a PUD can have much higher densities. But when you look at the development from a trained eye, and you say, well, there's this concentrations of lots, and they're much smaller than the adjacent subdivisions, would draw the conclusion that it's a higher density.
But also to know, on this compatibility question, we are not using a number 2, which is a residential or a single-family residential. We are, for the top 3, we were using number 7, which is a PUD, so we need to remember that compatibility is for a PUD.
If we believe the application
I'm not
qualifies for a
I'm not
PUD.
saying whether we're simply going through this as an activity for the commission. I am not saying that you need to score it based off the mitigation of impacts. It is up to your decision, in your opinion, of the mitigation of impacts. Does anyone else have any comments on number 4? Okay, hearing none. Number 5 is the size
What,
or
what number did you come up with?
we have anywhere from a -1 to a +1.
You need to come up with a number, please.
Okay, Commissioner Potter, what is your number?
I would rate number 4 as a +1. I feel that it
I
jives
apologize.
with the compatibility of the other subdivisions neighboring this development.
Commissioner Roberts is a -1. I'm a +1. Commissioner Swain?
-1.
Commissioner Freeman?
+1.
Based off the majority, it is at a +1. Moving forward with number 5, is the size or scale of proposed lots and or structures similar to the adjacent ones? Staff gave this a +2. I'll just go from one end to the other. Commissioner Potter, what was your?
+2.
And could you back that up with some information, please?
The square footages on the homes match neighboring subdivisions.
Commissioner Roberts?
So I scale this one as a -1 because it specifically says the size or scale of the proposed lots and or structures, and the lots are definitely smaller than adjacent ones.
Okay, mine was a +1. I believe that it's similar specifically, especially to the majority of railroad village lot size, as well as square footage of homes. Commissioner Swain?
I had a -1 lot size and density. That's for the reason.
Commissioner Freeman?
I have a -1. It's tighter.
Okay, thank you. So that number, based off the majority will be a -1. Moving forward with number 6, is the traffic volume and character to be generated by the proposed use similar to the roads on properties that will be affected by proximity to parking lots, on-site roads, or access roads? Commissioner Roberts?
Let me read my notes. I came up with neither negative nor positive on this one. I was at a 0 because I didn't feel like it had a huge negative effect or a positive effect, and I felt like mitigation could take care of it, and so that doesn't score it above or below. So I had a neutral 0.
I actually had a -1 because I did think the traffic volume would have some impact. I believe that those impacts can be mitigated. I believe I probably filled this out before the new traffic study had been completed. This development will cause more traffic, but I still believe it can be mitigated. And again, I would like to point out that a -1 is assigned for minimal compatibility, that adjacency is not discouraged, but those impacts do need to be mitigated.
Right, so base your scores on mitigation.
Okay, Commissioner Swain?
I had a -1. I didn't think the traffic study did the development justice, and I had concerns and saw no mitigation outside of the development was the reason.
Commissioner Freeman?
I had -1. 341 units is gonna add a lot of traffic in there.
Commissioner Potter?
I scored a 0. Because although we're gonna have traffic increases, we can also mitigate that. You have to mitigate growth somehow.
Okay,
So when you read that question, just for the record, it says, and I can't read it hardly up there, is the traffic
Volume and character to be generated by the proposed use similar
Similar
to the
to the-
reuses.
to the other uses in the area? So is it similar to the other uses in the area?
Yes.
And that's what the question is asking, is it similar to other uses?
So really, it's the same. It's gonna be the same use, you're just gonna be quite a bit more volume.
I think probably Commissioner Potter and Commissioner Roberts are correct. I think by the proposed use similar to the uses and properties. 0, I suppose, is appropriate. I would be willing to change that based off the recommendation of the commission.
So a 0 is assigned if not applicable or neutral.
So I believe the belief was that it was neutral.
Zero.
Okay, so based off the majority, that will be 0. Number 7 is the potential impact on adjacent properties due to the consuming or emission of any resource or substance compatible with that of existing uses. I gave it a +1, which is assigned for partial compatibility. I gave it a +1 because about half of the existing uses, I believe, are single-family residential. So I believe with that being 50% of the existing uses, that it warranted a +1. Commissioner Swain,
0.
any comments?
No, I really couldn't ascertain one way or the other.
Okay. Commissioner Freeman?
Read that one more time.
Is the potential impact on adjacent properties due to the consuming or emission of any resource or substance compatible with that of existing uses?
Is the road considered a resource? In there, is that
Probably not,
probably not?
because traffic is taken care of in number 6. Or it's considered in question number 6. I think this is probably other.
It's traffic, off-site traffic impacts are considered in number 8
It wasn't
also.
really the traffic, but the wear and tear on the road.
So consuming or emission of any resource that's probably water, open space, or substance, carbon emissions, that type of thing. So, would you like me to come back to you?
Yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Potter,
+1.
any comments on that?
No.
Okay. Commissioner
0,
Roberts.
just, I agree with Commissioner Swain.
Commissioner Freeman?
I'll go with a 0.
0? Okay. That is a 0 for number 7. Number 8, is the proposed use compatible with the abilities of public agencies to provide service or of public facilities to accommodate the proposed use demands on utilities, fire and police protection, schools, roads, traffic control, parks, and open areas? Commissioner Swain?
We had discussions on this for 3 meetings, and I never really got a clear answer from the impacts of the schools. There's going to be, but the meeting never took place. I won't belabor this, but I gave it a -1 on that.
Commissioner Freeman?
Say -1.
Commissioner Potter?
I gave it a +2.
Commissioner Roberts?
Well, Madam Chairman, I initially gave it a 0, but I'm looking back over the record from testimony from a number of people that live in the area about the impacts on parks, the Boulder Creek one down there, so it would probably settle in at a -1.
Okay.
And I did my compatibility before the public testimony. When I first got the application.
Okay, I gave it a +2. We have not heard many agencies that have commented negatively. I'm just gonna go specifically. Utilities, we heard from North Lake Sewer and Water that actually this development could ultimately help provide some of the upgrades that they need and that they will serve this development. So in terms of sewer and water, I don't think it's negatively going to impact it. I think it will probably actually help it. Fire and police protection, we did not hear that they would be unable to serve this. Schools, yes, we heard from the schools in one letter. However, the follow-up did not happen through that, even though the applicant did provide a very valid number of how many students were going to be in the school at full build-out. Roads, I believe this is why we have development agreements. Hopefully this development will actually help with some of the roads. Traffic control, again, I believe that goes back to the police protection. Parks and open areas, I believe it's gonna provide some more open areas. So I give it a positive 2. However, as a commission, it is a -1. Okay. Number 9, is the proposed use cost-effective when comparing for the cost for providing public services and improving public facilities to the increases in public revenue from the improved property? Commissioner Freeman?
What's the big number on that one?
Pardon?
What are the numbers on that one? I couldn't
Oh.
find the form, so.
It's the same thing, -2, -1, 0, +1, +2. I'm happy.
I'm gonna say +2, but property taxes are gonna be higher than it is now, so.
I have a question for staff on this one. Cinda, I was looking over your comments on question 9. Can you explain what you mean by will increase revenue in comparison to agricultural uses?
Yes, I can, because property taxes on residential uses are a lot higher than agricultural uses.
Correct. I
Right.
agree with that. But what about the cost of providing services for residential versus agricultural? We also agree that there's a higher demand for services for residential area.
Absolutely, there's more demand. Is the proposed use cost-effective when comparing the cost for providing public services and improving public facilities to the increases in public revenues? And yes, I believe that the public revenues of a subdivision like this will be greater than the impacts to public services.
So if they're commiserate with one another, and those taxes pay for the services that are needed by those residents, those new increased tax dollars, which most people, I think, in the county would appreciate. I'm not sure that the new development actually pays its way. That's we're still struggling with. And why would it get a +2 and not a neutral score?
Because a 0, because, let's see,
Would
a
it be
0,
neutral if it pays its own way?
assigned if not applicable or neutral. If you assign zeros on all this stuff, you're never gonna have a positive compatibility with anything. I think you need to read the numbers and use the compatibility rating as it was set up to happen. +2 is assigned for full compatibility, adjacency encouraged. -2 is adjacency not acceptable. -1, adjacency not discouraged. I think the tax revenues from residential developments exceed the cost of services. We've had presentations in the past. I mean, we had clerks in the past do presentations to the Planning and Zoning Commission showing those tables that do that do the analysis for you.
And I'll explain this in my,
Yeah, I feel like you're setting me
Well,
up
and I
to
think
say
it's
something. I'm
probably-
not sure what it is.
Time to bring this back to the commission discussions. Commissioner Potter?
I'm +2.
Commissioner Roberts?
So I'm actually a 0 on this one because I don't see that, I absolutely understand that there's more tax revenue from a home and a lot than there is from agricultural taxes. There's a huge disparity. But there's also a commensurate cost of providing services for those new homes, where there's a minimal cost for the county to provide a service for an agricultural field. And so I don't see how you can give extra credence to a compatibility rating for mitigation when, yes, it may offset it, but it's not gonna doubly offset it and take those revenues and use them elsewhere. I think at the very least, you can say it's, or the very most, it's neutral. Certainly not a positive too.
But if you had 340 homes and they only paid $1,000 in property taxes, that's $340,000 in a year. You don't think that would offset the costs for county employees and?
I think that it would probably offset it, but I don't think it goes above and beyond. And if it goes above and beyond, then I can see it granting a positive score. If it comes short of that, which,
Okay.
then I would say that it would be a negative score.
Okay, I gave it a positive 1. Commissioner Swain?
I also gave it a 0. Don't know what the revenue's gonna be, nor do I know what the cost is. I really didn't feel qualified to answer that, so I gave it a 0.
Okay, with that, the majority is a positive 2. So staff, if you could
You were a positive 1.
but we had a positive 2 and a positive 2, so if we're going with the majority of the,
So there is no majority.
okay, well, then wouldn't it be a positive 1.5 then? If 3 of us were positive and 2 were 0?
I would move that we adopt a compatibility rating for question number 9 as a positive 1. That carries the day.
There's a motion on the floor, any second?
Second?
All those in favor of seeing number 9's compatibility rating as a positive 1? All, there's a motion and a second to have our compatibility rating for number 9 be a positive 1. Any further discussion? What, you can do this in your mind, what would the mean be of this? Or the median
Of what?
of a 0, a +1, a +2, and a +2,
What's 3 divided by 5?
which is 1.5? Right? No. Correct.
What were the numbers? I'm sorry.
0, 0, +1, +2, +2.
Positive 1. Well, the median? Well, I just added those up and divided by 5.
Well, then should we do that on the rest of them?
I just made a motion.
Right,
Like
I know,
it.
we're simply discussing it. Okay, all of those in favor of making number 9 being a +1, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
Aye.
Aye.
So there were
Motion
two.
does not carry.
Okay.
Just thinking about the increased cost of the county for that area for resources. That includes EMS, fire, police, road department.
So,
The road in there is a private road, correct? It's not gonna be a county road. So the road department only has to maintain up to there. And how often does the fire truck go out to that? It might go out once a year at most in extreme conditions. I mean, the cost to the county is gonna be fairly low compared to the property taxes, depending on what they are. I don't know what they're gonna be there, but,
Mhm.
so I don't see why it's not a +2.
I think that we need to decide how we're going to look at all of these. If we would like to do the average of all of them, we can go back. I have all the numbers here. Except for maybe on number 8, I'm missing one. Might be mine.
I'd recommend we start again with 4. And we
Okay.
go through and you guys come to a consensus.
Okay, that's
Instead of just taking, well, there were 2 positive ones, so we're going with positive 1.
I was simply taking the majority number. But I think we can take the average. So on number 1, we had a +1, a -1, a +1, a -1, and a -1.
And that was on which question?
Number 4, no, that was on number 2.
Well,
Right.
1 through 3 are basically set.
Okay.
Those are based on the matrix.
Oh, yeah, 1 through 3. No, so we're starting on number 4.
Yes.
Okay, so let's go back. Commissioner Potter, what did you have on number 1? Or number 4?
+1.
Roberts,
Negative
Commissioner
1.
Roberts, -1. I had a +1, -1. Commissioner Freeman,
-1.
What was it?
-1.
we had 3 -1s and 2 +1s.
So someone changed theirs. Scott did. Changed
That
your,
was a +1.
you were +1 before, so now we're negative.
So you want to be a plus or a negative?
Actually, I had both written down on my thing, so I
You had
obviously
what?
waffled in there somewhere.
Right.
Scott, you need to set forward, I can't even hear you.
Got a frog in my throat today.
Thank you.
I can go with the +1, that's fine.
So what are the numbers then?
-1, 3 -1s, 2 +1s.
No, I had 3 positive
Oh,
ones.
3
and
+1s, 2 -1s. The next one is 3 negatives.
So the average of that is positive 1/5.
0.20.
0.20. Positive 0.20.
Yeah, 1/5.
Okay, I believe on the next one, we had a +1, a -1, a +1, a -1, and a -1.
I had a -1, -1, +2, +1.
I'm a +2 on that one.
Oh, that's the one I'm missing then.
Which one? 5?
Number 5.
I was.
That's the one
-1.
where Carrie had thought, because the buildings were the same scale as the adjacent ones, there was a +2. This is the lots and/or structures.
So we had a +2, a +1, and 3 -1s.
Yes.
What is your average on that?
0.
+1.
3 minus 3 is 0. So, and, you know, when we go to write this up, so you guys think that the lots are smaller than the adjacent ones? Is that the problem?
Well, this doesn't accurately represent what we really feel because some of us have positives, which does not equal a 0, and some of us have negatives, which definitely isn't a 0. So our average is not representing actually what the commission feels, which is why I was taking majority. Because having an average of 0 means that we all feel it's neutral or not applicable, and that's not how these compatibility ratings should be done.
Right.
So I would like to go back to majority. Which the
Or
only,
why doesn't somebody make a motion on each one and see if you can get,
because I think it would be simpler
That's-
to make a motion on all of them.
yeah. So, number 4, make a motion, somebody, please.
I don't want, well, someone can make a motion, but I don't believe our compatibility rating, because point 2 does not represent what these numbers mean. A point two is somewhere between not applicable and neutral and assigned for minimal compatibility.
I know.
So a point two, I don't believe makes sense in this compatibility evaluation. The numbers we have to use as a group need to be the actual numbers that we use on the compatibility rating.
Yes.
Okay,
So the only issue was number 9 essentially, because we had a +2, a 0, a +1, and a 0.
so
So if
the majority on that one's positive too.
correct.
On number 9,
Yes.
you have
We had
2
3.
zeros, +1, and 2 positive 2s.
Yes.
Where's the majority?
The majority is positive. No, I know, because no, you're
Oh, I'm sorry.
the twos. The
Gotta
twos
have
cancel
three.
out the zeros.
I was just looking at the
So that's
numbers
why you were
because
saying
a
+1.
0
You
is,
gotta have, yeah, I was trying to move us along.
I know.
I was just looking at the numbers because 0 is not applicable.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Madam Chairman, when I spoke earlier, this is the problem. We seem confused up here on this compatibility rating. Seems like we need to do a workshop and get our ducks in a row. I don't think it's fair to this applicant where we're trying to decide what the averages are, whatever, and it's just a recommendation, correct? I mean,
This
it
is-
doesn't
this-
hold any weight.
I don't
We-
think it's fair to the applicant to continue to a 5th meeting when
So,
it's simply a recommendation.
so let's think through this some more. Let's go through these questions and read the numbers, apply your mitigation to the impacts.
But I think everyone has done that.
We did that.
we've done-
Okay,
I don't think anyone's willing to change their numbers.
okay. So what is number 9
A +1.
plus 1? So I have a negative, starting with number 1, a -2, a +1, a 0, a +1, a -1. That's on the size of the houses, I guess are gonna be much larger. 0, 0, -1, and a +1.
Okay,
You
so
go
number
through
4
those.
was a +1. Number 5 is a -1. Number 6 is a 0. Number 7 is a 0. Number 8 is a -1. And number 9 is a +1. Correct?
Right, and on 6 and 7, 6, is the use similar to the existing uses? And you've come up with a not applicable or neutral.
I believe everyone believed it was neutral, that the
Okay,
traffic volume wasn't going to be increased or decreased.
so with that, you have a -4 compatibility rating.
I would entertain a motion to accept that as the Planning and Zoning Commission's compatibility rating.
Madam Chairman, I make the motion that we accept a compatibility rating of -4 on McGregor Township.
Second motion.
Okay, there's motion and second to accept a -4 as the Planning and Zoning Commission's compatibility questions and evaluation. Any further discussion?
No.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
I,
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving forward with a preparation of a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners.
So 9-9-3A says, you have to determine that the proposed use nets a positive score. And it makes up your mind. But you can go through some deliberation if you'd like.
So what's the next step? Just deliberate.
Deliberate. We have to have a positive compatibility rating to recommend approval.
So Madam Chairman, I will take a stab at this, and this might take a while, because I've spent hours on going through this application. And probably in excess of 60 hours of study and testimony and whatnot. So, and I've written, this is in writing, and I will give it to the secretary as soon as we are finished. And some of it I'm going to read. It says, upon evaluation, I find that the McGregor Town Site PUD proposal to conflict with both the intent and the overall scope of the Idaho statutes, Valley County Comprehensive Plan, and the overwhelming opposition by the public comments received. Additionally, I find several health, safety, and welfare risks that are inherent with this site and many surrounding parcels due to the soil characteristics that cannot be overcome and will place unsuspecting homeowners in an unsafe environment. The application requests for variances to the local regulations, or the applicant's request for variances to the local regulations fails to show an undue hardship and appear only to be requested to increase densities for the planned unit development. The following notes and citations were where I find the application and the proposed use to be either inadequate or in direct conflict with Idaho law, comprehensive plan, and or the local regulations. I cite the application, a couple different areas. I'm not going to read all of this stuff. But it appears that there was a case made that affordable housing was needed. We had the discussion about what's affordable for workers, what's not. There was an attempt by the applicant to ride the coattails of the old McGregor town site as a reason for approval, hence the name of the proposal. And in my mind, that carries no influence to the proposed PUD. The project phasing, we heard as a concern, and the 15-year development plan is basically a perpetual construction site for years, which will have impact on neighboring property owners and would affect the surrounding landowners' welfare. And we heard that in testimony as well. Traffic study was conducted. We've talked about this before on a shoulder season on November 8th during midweek. I believe the North Lake Sewer and Water District impacts can be addressed based on the testimony of the sewer district and the applicants' conversations with them. I think there was a misunderstanding about the irrigation water subject to Water District 65 administration, which will require metering and lease from Water District 65 water bank when the water right falls out of priority. Mitigation to the schools has not been addressed in the original application, though there were conversations that I guess have taken place, but nothing has come out of those at this point in time. I don't find that the variances that are being requested are substantiated by an undue hardship, including the setbacks and the use of common space for the open space, or the space around the homes for common space. I've already voiced my concerns about the compatibility of densities and the surrounding land uses. I think we went through that in the compatibility rating. So moving on to the comprehensive plan. I think chapter 1, the introductory chapter, small I sub 2-2 says the Valley County is sharing the pressures and the rewards of growth, and its citizenry is interested in ensuring that the quality of life does not decline as the population continues to increase. I think we heard testimony from the record that quality of life will be impacted. It's also cite in 2I, section 3, about the, in chapter 1, about the prevent the use not being harmful to the community in general. And it says the natural beauty and the open characteristics of the county should be considered. The proposal of the plan is to analysis is to guide the development so that no harm to the characteristics which attracted us here in the beginning. I think those are all out of chapter 1. It also in Idaho Code 676502, talking about the comprehensive plan, and I'll get into that in a second. Chapter 2, population, under objective 3, and private property rights, design and provisions of the comprehensive plan in order to protect both private property rights and the community's right to have a safe and healthy community. I think where we've heard testimony about the access to parks and other factors, traffic and whatnot. And also number 3, under chapter 3, goal 1, says protect each citizen in the community from unsafe and unhealthy conditions caused or worsening by activities, uses, structures, buildings, or other factors located on someone else's privately owned property. Chapter 4 of natural resource issues. I think I want to reference from the record the Valley Soil and Water Conservation District letter of concern about the overall water quality in Valley County, specifically Lake Cascade and Payette Lake have found to be declining, and Lake Cascade is of particular concern. There's nothing been demonstrated that the site will retain its stormwater on site. In fact, there's been discussions about how the overflow would mitigate or migrate down through subdivisions to the west and to the south directly into Cascade Reservoir. Chapter 5, dealing with hazardous areas. Goal 1, it says to protect the health and safety of Valley County residents and visitors from impacts of natural hazards. The objective is retain existing regulations that prohibit, control, construction, development, and filling in of designated flood-prone areas. And I've brought this up multiple times. We're experiencing probably a set of years here where we haven't seen a flood event in the springtime. But by the testimony of adjacent landowners, they've talked about flood events where water actually entered into the crawl spaces and whatnot in houses that are built on Railroad Village, which is at a higher elevation of the overall site that is being proposed. We're also supposed to encourage the use in floodplains which will incur or cause minimal damage if there is flooding. I don't believe that the plan addresses those. Chapter 8 of the comprehensive plan talks about the housing and community design. Goal 4 is to encourage new development in or near existing cities, communities in Valley County. This is definitely encouraging a city-like structure out in a rural area. Chapter 13, land use. Goal 1 says to retain the rural atmosphere of Valley County by protecting its natural beauty and open characteristics and preserving its historical and scenic beauty. And sub 1 of that talks about encouraging those land practices that protect and preserve the best agricultural land for agricultural use. B, 3 says discourage scattered sprawling, haphazard suburban development by controlling suburban development in open foothills. And 6, C6, it says relate future county development to natural site advantages and limitations such as soil, slope, water table, view, and flood hazards. And I think the Soil and Water Conservation District also raised those issues about soil types. Idaho Statute 676502 talks about the general health, safety, and welfare of the citizens. And it encourages us to cluster those developments within city or close to city areas. In Idaho Code 676512A, which is very specific, it says in about the second sentence, it says a special use permit may be granted, it says may be granted to an applicant if the proposed use is conditionally permitted by the terms of the ordinance. That's one condition. Second condition is subject to the conditions pursuant to specific provisions of the ordinance. That's the second one. And subject to the ability of political subdivisions, including school districts, to provide services of the proposed use. That's condition 3. And the fourth condition says when it is not in conflict with the plan. Well, what is the plan? The plan is our comprehensive plan that we've been referring to earlier today. I looked at the regulatory takings checklist and considered an action to deny. And if you go through the questions of whether that checklist takes any right away, there is no entitled provisions on the land currently, so you're not taking it away any entitlement. So the health, safety, and welfare issues deal with soils. I'm not going to go to a lot of detail here, but it's in writing if you want to see it. I am concerned about the hardening of land surfaces and the concentration of runoff water and the inability of the land to handle the spring runoff within the site. And I think this is important. It says that these elevated high water concentrations will trespass onto adjacent residential areas to the west of the proposed PUD and cause increased flooding, property damage, and related health and safety issues due to excess water in and around existing residences. The site consists of soil that already cannot absorb the spring water from snowmelt and generally has standing water for weeks, even after the snow has disappeared from the valley floor. Case in point, what I'm trying to say is people that come in here in the summertime, they look at it a lot, they go, oh, great place. They don't know what spring water does. And when you start to have elevated water tables, which has already been seen to the west of this site, and the soil conditions get worse the further east you go in this ground, and in you get a lot of potentials for mold infections or infestations in homes. So I think I've addressed everything else, but that's my points.
Madam Chair, I have a point of order. And I take absolutely no pleasure in doing this. I, at this point, think that based on information that we have from the owner, we need to know and have Commissioner Roberts disclose whether he's made attempts to lease or purchase this property in the past. I was very concerned about the way we were sent away. And again, I take no pleasure in this, but I feel like I have to do this in light of, if I'm going to fully represent my client. And I am concerned that prior attempts in the recent past to lease or purchase the property may have an impact on some of this evaluation.
So I'll speak to the record. I've already put it on the record that I used to farm the piece of property. My uncle used to own it. It's been sold. We'd have no interest in the property whatsoever.
But my question was whether you recently tried to lease or purchase it.
No. No, we have not. We tried 2 or 3 years ago, was the last time.
Right, well, I needed to have that on the record because I am concerned about the appearance here, so.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman, if Ken is finished,
I'm finished.
would you mind if I deliver it?
Go ahead.
Can you put a mic in front of Gary, please?
Um,
Not
We
that one.
heard discussion,
Not this one. I need
The
the
other
other
one,
one.
please.
can't you hear me? That one doesn't work?
Not-
How's that?
Not well.
Workforce housing was brought up quite a bit. We heard from the developer that he was supporting workforce housing, suggesting that up to 50% of these dwellings would be devoted to that effort. We also heard testimony about workforce housing at our last meeting from two professional income families on what they can support in the way of a mortgage, which was a home valued or sold at less than $500,000. I found answers to these questions in information and research from the United States Census released in 2021 and the Demographic Trend and Forecast Report completed in 2023 by Clearwater Financial, which a copy was provided to everybody here. Using the base purchase price here at McGregor Town Site, the price starts at $600,000 for these proposed homesteads in this application with 20% down, leaves an annual 7% mortgage of $43,848, requiring an annual dual salary of $131,544. The current census reports show the average median income in Valley County is between $72,000 and $89,000, well below the $131,000 needed to purchase within this application. In the last 10 years, Valley County has grown by 1,854 people. And we were to believe that this proposal was truly workforce housing, then this one development would supply over half of the housing needs for Valley County for the next 10 years. 341 dwellings times 3.06 people per house. The county has approved 20,000 parcels with dwelling units, and only 17% of those are occupied by local ownership, as witnessed by homeowners exemptions. This is further reinforced by the Meadows at West Mountain subdivision, where 69% of those workforce houses are owned by people outside of this county and used as second homes and short-term rentals. According to the Demographic Trend and Forecast by Clearwater Financial, this body here only needs to approve 50 dwelling units per year to keep up with our growth. I just want to be clear that this proposal does nothing for our workforce housing. Secondly, I have a little problems with the traffic study. I have reservations about the traffic study when it was conducted, not reflecting peak periods of second home use and tourism. I also found in the study, it talks about potential impacts of, I found nothing in the report that it talks about potential impacts of the commercial ventures within the development, and with only 80 parking spaces available and no off-street parking, how can concerts and other large events be held there? Also, parking areas cannot be considered as common open spaces under section 9-9-7G4. The open space is one I dealt with quite a bit. This application does not meet the 50% requirement threshold for open space or common open space as defined in our definition 9-110. Front, side, and backyards are privately owned properties identified as hybrid open space does not meet our code requirements as open space, as it must be an amenity to the PUD. Also, section 9-9-7I states each residential unit shall have ready access to common areas and facilities. What this application attempts to do is to identify certain lands twice. Once as yards around the private property, the minimum lot to affect the minimum lot size, which can be fenced and used privately, and again as hybrid open space. And the final one was the code requirements. This application does not meet Valley County code requirements requiring right-of-way widths, front, side, and rear yard setbacks, maximum lot coverage, reduced frontage width along the road, and again, the open space requirement. And the only reason I see for the request of these variances is to increase density. And after everybody has spoken, I would like to reserve the right to make a motion. Thank you.
Commissioner Potter.
Yes, can I have everyone, can we actually disclose what comp score we gave personally?
Sure. Absolutely.
I didn't hear what you said.
She asked whether we could disclose what comprehensive rating, or what the compatibility rating we gave. So although we gave an average commission compatibility rating, if she could disclose her individual. So, but we'll
Okay.
move on to you for your comments and.
Okay. So I scored this as a positive 11 in my initial compatibility score, based in part because Chapter 2, Goal 1 is to accommodate the growth and development while protecting the quality of life within the Valley County.
Just make sure you speak up, please, so we have it
sorry.
on record.
Yes, of
Thank you
course.
so much, sorry.
And then in regards to Chapter 8, Goal 4, Objective 1, encourage industrial and commercial services to locate within the cities and within their areas of impact or areas with similar uses. In regards to the density, I think it fits perfectly within the surrounding areas. As far as affordable housing, if we have no housing option, we don't have the ability to get to an affordability within the county, and it's basic economics, supply and demand. So if we increase our supply, we're going to decrease our demand because it's going to decrease the cost of these houses. So if we can get some supply on the market, it's going to help our community in the long run. Additionally, I was part of the West Central Mountains Advisory Committee back in March, where they took a recent survey as well as recent census data and realized that we are roughly, I believe, 800 units short currently in the county. And that's not just workforce or low income, that's actually across the entire spectrum of housing and at every income level. And those are my thoughts.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Commissioner Freeman?
So I feel like we have maybe hypocritical almost, that
There, okay.
you know, we want something that's affordable for the working professionals or working people to be able to afford. And then we have this development, and I think we'd all like to see a little bit more space in there, but that costs more money. And so we've got that, how do we balance the lot size and get the price down? I don't know how we do that. You know, so I think we've all wrestled with this application for, what, 3 months now, 2 months now. You know, so really, I feel that, I guess my main deal is to maintain that rural character of the area. I feel like it's just far enough out of Donley that it's should have a more rural feel to it, and it feels dense looking at the plan. And then I think that Ken brought up a good point with the hardening of the surface, because you're not going to get as much absorption. The water's not going to percolate into the ground in that area like it would, or like it does now. And really, that's the only things that I have against it.
Okay, thank you. Well, I will finish up with some of my comments. We've heard a lot from code and the compatibility rating, and I think that you can nitpick out of both of those which ones are going to fit your argument. So I'm going to just keep to some more general ones and not go through exactly the comprehensive plan and the code. But to start off, under our comprehensive plan, we are encouraged to amend land use ordinances to increase densities when on sewer. And we can adjust some of the variances through a PUD that is on sewer and water. And I think in order to face this current housing challenge that Valley County is under, we have to think out of the box, such as an application like this. Not all homeowners want a lot of open space. Not all homeowners want a 3-acre lot that they have to maintain. Some want open space that is maybe maintained through the HOA or through the development, that they don't have to come home from work and mow the yard, that it's maybe taken care of. In all of the presentations of this application, I don't believe they've ever actually clarified that this was for workforce housing. I believe the words they used were attainable and move-up housing. They wanted to provide the people who could buy something that maybe 5 years ago they couldn't, to move up to have a housing option. That was a different option and an opportunity for them. It is not our job as a commission to determine if the applicant's going to be successful in their business plan, if the densities work out, if people can afford this. It's our job to look at the application, the opinions of the experts, such as the engineers, DEQ, Central District Health, and the agencies affected, and see if it falls and fits within Valley County's comprehensive plan. I do want to say a quick thank you to all the public that is here today and who has been here to all of the meetings to come and put the time and effort in to give us your opinions. I think it's very important to have your input, and we appreciate that. I think without that, we, as a commission, would miss several things. I'm going to go over just a few of, when I first read through this application, these are all my overall concerns. Traffic study should have been done in the summer. I didn't like that it was done on a Wednesday. I thought it was an incomplete application at first. Lack of CC&Rs, those have been provided to us. Lack of a stormwater plan, they've come back with that. Traffic, again, snow storage, would like to have seen more of a neighborhood meeting. Lack of entrances to surrounding developments. These are the concerns that I had at the beginning, but all of these have been mitigated. The applicants have tried to work with the school. They have had a commitment from North Lake Sewer to serve this property on sewer and water. And they've committed to putting, I imagine, what would have been a hefty sum of money into improving the area around it. And I think that's important for us to think about. Let me just double check that I appreciate short-term rentals are a very hot topic within Valley County, and the developer worked with us to say that he would only allow it in a certain part of the development. I think they've done their due diligence. I still think that there's some more that probably need to work out, but they have worked to mitigate the impacts on all the fronts that I was concerned about at first. So with that, I am going to finish my comments and just say thank you to all the public that's come in. Thank you to the applicant for coming in and spending a lot of time with us and providing us all of the questions or all of the answers to the questions that we have asked. So thank you.
Madam Chairman, can I ask a question?
Sure.
How do you get around, PUD, 50% open space, and they don't have it? Are you willing to grant that variance?
A PUD offers us the opportunities to grant variances based on what we believe is beneficial or applicable to the application.
Right. In the open space portion, it says 50%. However, the commission may reduce this requirement if they find that such a decrease is warranted by the design of and the amenities and features incorporated into the plan, and that the needs of the occupants of the PUD for open space can be met in the proposed development. Each residential unit shall have ready access to common areas and facilities. That's what the ordinance says. It doesn't say, it's not a hard 50%.
I don't think we're probably going to change each other's opinions on this.
No, but I'm trying to understand something here for both Carrie and you. I mean, this isn't affordable housing. I totally understand it. It is workforce housing, and we started to use that term during this. How can you justify when only 17% of these developments are people that live up here. The majority of this is going to be second homes and vacation rentals. And how do you get around the fact that the average income for two people working in a household is 87, and for you need to make 131,000 to afford one of these? It's, I would like it to be true that they will move up to this, but the statistics don't show it.
And those are numbers from 2020?
No,
From the-
2023. That's it.
I understand numbers. I don't think very often people are very honest when it comes to stating their income. I think probably that number doesn't take into account a lot of private income.
How can we deliberate if we question statistics? I
Well,
don't understand.
But then how can we deliberate when we question the intentions of the applicant?
I'm not questioning
And
his
what-
intention.
That they actually will make sure that they provide some of this housing and make sure that a certain percentage goes to
I never
teacher.
mentioned that. You did. I never mentioned they were going to support that 50% housing. I mean, that's an option he can or cannot do. Statistics show he won't. He'll provide 17% at best, because that's the way Valley County is.
It's just the market.
I mean, I'm not trying to be argumentative. I'm just trying to find answers to some of this when the figures don't match up with what we would like to see.
Well, this application has come far closer than any other application to providing an attainable housing product for anyone in Valley County. And like Commissioner Potter said, until we get more options, more supply, we're never gonna have the opportunity to have any sort of housing.
I don't know what statistics back that up. I just don't. Madam Chairman, could I make a motion?
You are welcome to do whatever you would like.
I make a motion that we deny PUD 2302 McGregor Township and CUP 23-52 Phase 1 preliminary plats for the reasons cited below. This application does not meet Valley County Code requirements regarding right-of-way widths, front, side, and rear setbacks, maximum lot coverage, reduced widths along the roads, and common open space requirements under section 9-9-7I, and the common open space definition 9-1-10, as well as the open space definition. It doesn't meet those requirements. Valley County Code 9-1-4B discourages urban sprawl. It fails to maintain the open space and rural feel of the county. And 9-52, the comprehensive plan states in part that the rural atmosphere of the valley is to be protected. Finally, it fails to satisfy Idaho State Statute 67-65F, Valley County Code 9-1-2F, and Valley County Comprehensive Plan Goal 4, encouraging urban and urban-type developments within the incorporated cities, impact areas, and other designated areas, and Title 67-65G to avoid undue concentration of populations and overcrowding of land. That is my motion.
Second the motion.
I would okay, there's motion and a second on the floor to deny PUD 23-02 and McGregor Town Sites. Is there any further discussion?
Cindy, can we get the impact area map?
Just as a comment, I would recommend you edit your motion. This is not a denial, it's a recommendation for denial to the Board of County Commissioners. This is not a final decision.
Oh, I totally understand that.
Second agrees.
Commissioner Freeman will move forward with your comments on the impact area if you would so like to share them.
Is the
During
yellow
this
the
discussion.
Donley impact area?
Yes, yes.
So it is outside the impact area.
I think that part of the comp plan says commercial and industrial and in impact areas, and then dense urban, I think is what Commissioner was talking about.
It says, well, the code states to, by encourage urban and urban type development within incorporated cities, impact areas, and other designated areas. So other. Okay, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor to deny, or to recommend denial of PUD 23-02 McGregor Town Site and CUP 23-52 Phase 1 preliminary plat to the Board of County Commissioners, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye. Commissioner Freeman, did you vote?
No, I didn't. I'll vote with you guys, you gals.
Is it no?
Yeah.
Okay, motion does not carry to recommend denial to PUD 23-02 McGregor Town Site and CUP 23-52 Phase 1 preliminary plat. Staff, correct me if I am wrong, but with a motion that does not carry for a denial, it,
And make another motion if you are going to recommend approval. That's what I would recommend.
okay. I would entertain a motion if someone would so like to make one.
Chairman can make a motion.
I recommend that we approve PUD 23-02 McGregor Town Site and CUP 23-52 Phase 1 preliminary plat based off the prior discussion.
I'll second that.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to recommend approval to the Board of County Commissioners for PUD 23-02 McGregor Town Site and CUP 23-52 Phase 1 preliminary plat. Any further discussion?
Can we get everyone's compatibility rating?
Did you have your compatibility ratings filled out?
I think we'll provide that to the record.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Nays?
No.
Okay, motion carries to recommend approval of PUD 23-02 McGregor Town Site and CUP 23-52 Phase 1 preliminary plat to the Board of County Commissioners. Okay, with that, we do have our next meeting next Thursday. It is our standard monthly meeting at 6 p.m. Thank you again to everyone that has come, and meeting is adjourned. I would recommend as a Board of Planning and Zoning Commissioners to keep all of your documents and information in the instance that the Board of County Commissioners remands it back to us.